The new movie Killers of the Flower Moon has got a peculiar Masonic scene in it, and we're going to talk about it right now. Welcome to the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry channel. I'm Maynard Edwards, 33rd degree, your host here, and this is Brother Chris Ruley, historian and author. And you can check out Chris's new book. Click the link above. It's all about Freemasonry and the White House. But today we're talking about Freemasonry and Killers of the Flower Moon. Everybody's talking about it. They're already handing out Oscars and giving them to Leo and Robert De Niro.
Lily Gladstone did a great job.
I have not seen the movie.
You gotta go. Well, but you've read the book.
I've read the book, and I will tell you, it's a tragic story. Right. Especially the beginning is a tragic story. The book itself was a tough read. It reads a little like a textbook, but I get it.
It goes more into the history about the FBI, the machinations around it. Yeah.
You're the historian here, so let's talk a little bit about what the story is very briefly, and then we'll talk about the Masonic component of it.
The Osage Nation, an American indigenous nation in Oklahoma, strikes oil. Black gold, Texas tea, as they call it. And so through politics and through various, systems, they basically are now entrusted with that money, but the government has it, and they basically are doling out monies and rewards to the Osage.
The story revolves around a plot to kill off members of the Osage tribe to get what they called their head rights, meaning to get their oil money.
Right.
And there were dozens of Osage that were killed, and this is in the mid-1920s. And it's a terrible, terrible tragedy. As I said, the story is fascinating, but it is absolutely heartbreaking.
And the FBI is brought in because it's trying to solve this mystery.
Right, and so the FBI...
Or not an early iteration of the FBI. It's not the FBI.
It was a Bureau of Investigation, but it was not the FBI. J. Edgar Hoover was in charge. He sent a guy named Tom White down, and that was the part originally Leonardo DiCaprio was going to play.
Right.
But instead, he plays Burkhart, who is the husband of one of these Osage folks. Her name is Molly, and you said played by Lily Gladstone.
Great job. Fantastic job.
And he is sort of a double agent. He's married to and has children with this woman, but then he basically kills her whole family and is more or less in a plot to kill her at the behest of his uncle. It does talk about the birth of the FBI, basically, and how Hoover was, kind of pulling the strings from Washington to run this investigation.
That's really the second half. The first half of the movie really is about Leo's character. He arrives, I think it's Fairfax, Oklahoma. He is reintroduced to his uncle. You're really seeing it through his eyes, trying to develop a life, engaging with Lily Gladstone's character, and building something.
The main villain in the book, as well as in the movie, is a guy named Bill Hale. William King Hale was his real name. And he is played by De Niro in the movie, and I understand De Niro just tears this apart.
I mean, it's classic De Niro. He does a great job.
There's a scene where Mr. Hale takes Burkhart, Leonardo DiCaprio, into a Masonic lodge and more or less spanks him.
And it's not a lodge in session. It's just, it's a quiet space.
Right.
A real place, not a set. This is a real lodge. Gray Horse Lodge in Fairfax, Oklahoma.
Remove the book.
He asks to remove the Bible off the altar, which I think is really important. We'll talk about that in a second.
All right, brother. Stand up. Stand up.
Now, this is not Masonic ritual.
No, not at all.
This has nothing to do with Freemasonry. This could have been done at a bar. This could have been done at a private. It could have been at King's home.
I am a 32nd degree Mason. I am imbued with confidence, trust, and responsibility, among other things.
Yes, sir.
You know what that is?
No, sir.
And the spanking of Leonardo DiCaprio as Burkhart goes on from there. First things first.
Yes.
Was Bill Hale a 32nd degree Scottish Rite Mason? And the answer is, sadly, yes, he was. And in fact, I went through our membership rolls and I pulled out the membership cards from the 20s.
That was really cool.
Them, And we have his original membership card. You can see it here on screen, and it shows you the dates that he came into the Scottish Rite. It shows his home lodge there, which is Grey Horse Lodge, and that's this
That's
lodge,
right. That's the same one. So it makes sense that he's bringing Leo's character there.
He was convicted at the end of October. Basically, the week after that, he was expelled from the Scottish Rite. And again, you can see that here on his membership card that Mr. Hale, he's not Brother Hale, he's Mr. Hale at that point. He was kicked out of the fraternity. There are rotten apples in the world, and certainly some of them have gotten past what we call the West Gate.
Right.
Let's talk about this set that we see here. Best I can tell, like you said, this is a real Masonic lodge. This is not
It
a
is.
set.
We don't even have to say it. We confirmed there have been brothers who have reached out to us and confirmed that the movies, Marty Scorsese's, a team went out, filmed, and you can tell that they rearranged some furniture. There's past masters' portraits hanging up. There's a big furnace in the middle there that you can see that was heating up this old historic lodge building.
The first thing that jumps out at me is that this is shot with the camera in the east facing towards the west. There's no G above those chairs in the center back, so that indicates it's not the east. And then there's a furnace where the junior warden's chair would be if we were looking towards the east. So, or not a furnace, a wood-burning stove right there. So that would be the north of the lodge, and then the south is sort of off camera in this shot to the left. One thing that strikes me as odd, that they must have done just for aesthetics and filmmaking purposes, is the pillars.
That's right.
Are you familiar with any Masonic lodge ritual, Blue Lodge ritual in the United States that does put their pillars there? Because I see the pillars in different places, but never there.
No. And quite frankly, there's another shot that appears afterwards that I think helps explain. There, that's the one.
Oh, okay.
It creates a nice image when he walks in. There's a part when he walks in when you see the two pillars, and then this shot right here of him leaning on the altar. It's just an aesthetically pleasing shot.
You have seen the movie, and I will tell you, in the book, there is a passing mention of a Masonic lodge and that Bill Hale was a Mason.
And that's it.
It's about a sentence.
That's it.
In the very first part of the book.
Right.
This scene that takes place in a Masonic lodge, this story is based on true events. That didn't happen.
I don't think it happened. I don't think there's any evidence that suggests that happened. I think Martin Scorsese was trying to set up, I think he was trying to add some symbolism there. He was trying to introduce this idea. If you're the general audience that knows nothing about Masonry, you either go into that thinking, oh, there's some Masonic connection here that I may not realize. There are some people that go, oh, this is clearly a Masonic initiation, but clearly it's not. This character, Leonardo DiCaprio's character, was not a good person. I don't think, would have qualified to be a good Mason, especially based on his actions in the movie. And so I think it was, to a Mason's perspective, watching this movie, I think it was Scorsese's attempt to add a little mystery, to say maybe these actions that Hale was taking was either legitimized or supported by the members of the lodge. But if you're a Mason and you look do a little bit of research, read the book that, as you mentioned, think about the scene, I see it in a different context. I see it as Hale was taking advantage of the fraternity's reputation, and I wrote a little blog post about it that you shared, which I appreciate.
One thing I think is important to also mention is that I think, and correct me if I'm wrong because I haven't had a chance to see it yet, I think the film paints Bill Hale as the only bad guy here.
Correct.
Well,
he is the leader of these, not the only bad guy, but he's basically orchestrating a lot of these activities.
In the book, the author goes to great length, I'd say in the last 50, maybe 100 pages or so, to basically establish the fact that while Bill Hale was probably the worst of the worst, and Burkhart was right there with him, there were some people who were pulling this same scam on the members of the Osage Nation, and a lot of them went completely without justice.
Right.
They managed to escape, and they got these oil rights that belonged rightfully to the tribe.
Absolutely.
And it is a tragic story, but Masonry wasn't generally as involved.
No. And by the way, here's an example, or here's a reason why you can automatically tell that Masonry wasn't involved. he was immediately expelled afterwards.
Immediately.
By the way, you would assume, let's assume that this lodge was members of the civil class, right? So maybe a judge, maybe a local police officer, whatever. You have people here with authority, let's just say. You assume that they were likely not Osage because of racism and the context of the time. So you would think that if Hale got caught, his brothers would find a way of trying to limit, reduce his sentence or find a way to help him out in this position. They did not.
Expelled him
They
immediately.
moved forward to expel him. To me, while I'm watching this, I was thinking about this afterwards. What I see was Hale was an evil person, an inherently evil person. He was a bad character, a bad actor. And the lodge made the decision to expel him because it's hinted in the book that he used the lodge hall to conduct his business. It's also hinted in the movie about that. He clearly, no one else was there except for one of his assistants. So it wasn't like Leo's character walked into an open lodge of all these important people saying, you've got to stop doing this. It was one guy using this place. And what did he do? Look at as he enters into the room. That's a really terrifying experience. It's dark. It's not, it's dimly lit. There's one guy there. There's these objects in front of you. If you're a Mason, you wouldn't know what that means. And then you're placed upon the altar and then attacked or hit or struck.
By the way, the paddle, as Chris pointed out, that De Niro has in his hand, has a square and compass on it. There is no such thing as a Masonic paddle. It's not a symbol. It's not something we use in our ritual. That's something that is completely made up out of whole cloth by the movie makers, because at the end of the day, their real job is to sell tickets and make us all, and I get that they're telling a story that needs to be told and has gone untold for far too long, as does the book. And I do recommend that you pick up the book. Like I said, it's a tough read.
Yeah.
It reads a little like a textbook, but worth the read, worth getting through.
Yeah. I mean, and here's the other thing. Scorsese is a master of his art. Look what happens when he walks in. He's placed on the altar. What's the first thing that gets afterwards? He's told to remove the Bible from the altar. Why? Because in my mind, symbolically, he didn't want the lodge or, the Supreme Architect to be involved in this.
Interesting.
Move the book away, strike him, and then what happens? Look at the scene. They take a couple extra seconds, not just to say, okay, place the book back. He says outwardly, place the book back, and then he takes a couple extra seconds to make sure it's adjusted and fit and proper. It's as if he's committing a crime in the lodge room, and he doesn't want the architect, the great architect of the universe, to be present in that, as part of that.
Do you call this movie anti-Masonic?
I think if you see the movie and you're not a Mason, you could certainly think that that claim is true, or you can think that something is going on with Freemasonry involved. If you are a Mason and you're trying to learn history, and you can see, I think you can appreciate my approach to it, which was Hale took advantage of the fraternity. He used the lodge space to conduct his business. He was punished for it, and the fraternity endured. One bad apple was removed from the fraternity.
That's Brother Chris Ruley, 32nd degree KCCH, Scottish Rite Mason. I'm Maynard Edwards, 33rd degree. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Do go check out Killers of the Flower Moon and grab the book as well. They are a little bit different, and the book tells a little more complete story, but I mean, you got Marty and Leo and Bobby De Niro.
Get both. Read the book and then go see the movie.
And then come back and tell us what you thought here in the comments section.